I grew up Jehovah's Witness. It was not a good experience for me. I left the religion eventually, not happy with it. I still don't talk to my mom. She shuns me. And by mandate, you will be shunned if you talk to somebody who's being shunned right now. So if my mom talked to me, she would be shunned too. But Jehovah's Witnesses is an important subject to me for that reason. So every year, Jehovah's Witnesses hold this convention. I'm not going to bury the lead. We've got our hands on some videos that they kind of removed from their platform that I wanted to take a look at. Every year they hold these conventions. A 2023 convention, they hold three. There's the 1 day, the 2 day, and the 3 day. I think they call it Special Day Assembly, Circuit Assembly, and District Assembly. And it's, everybody within a certain area kind of gets together and whatever. So anyway, this website, avoidjw.org, I discovered they came across this interesting little thing, right? So Jehovah's Witnesses have an app, like JW app or whatever, where they upload all of their stuff. Let's just read the article so that you have an idea of what's going on. And we're going to watch the videos that Jehovah's Witnesses kind of removed from their platform or whatever. Jehovah's Witnesses mysteriously delete shunning videos. That's interesting, right? As Jehovah's Witnesses kick off their 2023 regional convention season, something very odd took place. 2 videos intended for the Witnesses' online version of the convention have been deleted from the streaming versions of the assembly program with no explanation, but not before they were captured by avoidjw.org, which is who we're reading from. I wanted to watch these videos. They're about 1.5 minutes long each, give or take. Jehovah's Witnesses are still very much in favor of shunning. They will still disfellowship you for not shunning somebody else. They're pretty serious about it. So I don't know exactly what the goal was in, deleting these videos, but you know what? Check this out. This is video number 1 on shunning that they deleted.
Mom's disfellowshipping still feels so raw.
Elsa?
Right, I was disfellowshipped. The reason I was disfellowshipped is because I was going off and living my own life, and I was isolated from society, largely, and I was just living my life. I was just experiencing things. I went to a high school party. I drank alcohol, and that was enough to permanently shun me from my friends and family until the day that they die. I drank alcohol at a high school party, 15 years ago, and I haven't spoken to my mom since. Not really. I mean, not with a real relationship. So what they're saying here is this woman's mom was disfellowshipped, and she seems to have a problem with it, with how it went down, okay?
Elsa, please speak up. I miss you so much.
Notice that they're portraying her as not answering the phone. That's a mandate. You're not allowed to. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses still produced this. They still got the actors to act in it and everything, and they still believe this. I'm not sure why they removed it from their convention, app or whatever, but this is still very much part of their doctrine. My mom is doing it now.
I just want to hear your voice.
It's such a struggle. I miss her.
Okay, this thing in the background that I'm drawing a circle around with my mouse, that thing looks just a little too narrow to be a cutting board, doesn't it? Sorry, let me step back. I got distracted by the supposed cutting board that this woman keeps in her kitchen. Okay.
She taught me the truth.
So her mom is the one that brought her into the religion in the first place. That's what that meant. She taught me the truth. They call their religion the truth. I mean, that should tell you something about how culty this group is, right? If a group naturally just refers to itself as the truth, Hey, are they part of the truth? Hey, did they join the truth? There's a problem. There's something wrong. So she's saying she helped her join the religion. Okay, go on.
Gave me a stable life. She was my closest friend.
I mean, when someone gets disfellowshipped at that age, I'm guessing she probably finally accepted that she was a lesbian and found a girlfriend that made her happy. That's my guess. I don't know.
What's the harm in just calling once in a while? To chat.
Absolutely. What's the harm?
Maybe I can even help her to come back to Jehovah.
Yeah, these are all logical thoughts that a logical person would have that dispel shunning, that destroy the idea behind it, right? Seems obvious. Yes, absolutely. You're supposed to help people who are struggling with their religion or whatever. You want people to rejoin the religion? I'll tell you the thing you shouldn't do, the thing that happened to me when I was in 11th grade. Kicked out of my house, had to crawl in the window of some girl's bedroom that I knew from school, live in her bedroom for 3 weeks, and I had to piss in Gatorade bottles so her family didn't know I was there. Because I can't just go out and use the bathroom. Really, that's what Jehovah's Witnesses want. They want to grab the rug and yank it out from under you, intentionally watching you fall flat on your face so that you serve as an example to everybody around you. You're thinking about leaving. You've thought about, you've got these questions or whatever. You don't want to follow the direction of the elders or whatever. Watch what we do to this person. I'm not joking. I'm not being hyperbolic. That's what they do. And that's why she's saying this. That's why she's portraying it this way in the first place. What would the harm be in just talking to them once? Exactly. What would the harm be? Really? What would the harm be? There would be no harm in my mom chatting with me every now and then. But she doesn't, my mom doesn't chat with me because she's a scumbag. And that's heavily bolstered by the religion, by Jehovah's Witnesses. But there is no harm in not talking to ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, somebody who's left their religion behind. There's no harm. You know what? They bring up like what you'd call apostate material. Change the subject. Simple as that. Say, hey, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to talk about it. So let's move on to another subject. How was your day? It's not that simple with Jehovah's Witnesses. It can never be that simple.
What's the harm in just calling once in a while? To chat. Maybe I can even help her to come.
They do this in an effort to set up the question so that they can knock them down easily. This is a common technique in debating. I forget the name of the technique, the propaganda technique, where they set up the argument so that they can knock it down. I mean, it's not really a straw man. They're just presenting, poisoning the well. That may be the thing I was thinking of. Poisoning the well. I would say this is probably called poisoning the well. It's a logical fallacy, a propaganda technique where people present an argument that's commonly argued, and then they come up with a good excuse for why it's invalid, basically.
What's the harm in just calling once in a while? To chat. Maybe I can even help her to come back to Jehovah.
Yeah, so I guess that was the end. It was a somber, sad video. And like I said, they apparently produced 2 of these puppies. So let's watch the second one. This one is about 1 minute and 24 seconds. Check this out.
Abel was essentially a spiritual orphan. But regardless of what his parents...
Abel was a spiritual orphan? Is that what they said?
Abel...
Yeah, Abel. Abel was a spiritual orphan. You're talking Cain and Abel, right? Maybe I just don't understand yet because I'm prematurely hitting the spacebar. Let's keep listening.
Was essentially a spiritual orphan. But regardless of what his parents chose, he listened to Jehovah and patiently waited on him to fulfill his promises.
I never thought of it that way.
That's the woman from before. That's her. That's the woman whose mom is like being shunned by her, right? Who she was so close to. who I'm going to assume had a lesbian relationship, and that's why she was disfellowshipped. That's the headcanon that I prefer to believe in. All right, let's listen again.
But regardless of what his parents chose, he listened to Jehovah and patiently waited on him to fulfill his promises.
I never thought of it that way. What has Jehovah promised me if I patiently wait?
Right, so no matter what, no matter how much you want to talk to your mom, no matter how important she is in your life, you're going to shun her. You will shun her. That's part of your mandate. And if you don't, you're going to lose your opportunity to everlasting life after Armageddon or whatever. That's what Jehovah's Witnesses believe. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but the Bible never supports shunning. There is no support in the Bible for shunning, and I have no investment in this. Like, I don't care. The Bible could support shunning, and I would say, wow, that's messed up. I'm an atheist. Okay, I don't care what the Bible says. If the Bible says something wrong, I'm going to call that out. It simply doesn't say that shunning is the right thing to do. I'll explain that in a minute, so keep listening.
To fulfill his promises.
I never thought of it that way. What has Jehovah promised me if I patiently wait? Spiritual brothers, sisters, and mothers.
All right, I'm going to step back to right here.
What has Jehovah promised me if I patiently wait?
It's all about what I can get out of it. I am losing something. What is Jehovah going to give me? The answer is nothing, because the Bible doesn't support this. It's the people in New York, it's the governing body that continue this tradition of shunning, and it is unbiblical. But okay.
Spiritual brothers.
Is she saying she's going to find somebody to date within the religion? Is that the point here?
Sisters. And mothers.
See, they try to replace the people that they've lost within the religion. That's really, really heartbreaking, isn't it? Since I mentioned it, let me just talk about the reasoning that Jehovah's Witnesses give for shunning and why it's flawed. We'll come back to this in a second. We're only like 30 seconds in, but it's relevant. The verse that Jehovah's Witnesses commonly use, let me kind of explain how the Bible is structured. I didn't actually know this until years and years down the line, right? Here's how the Bible's structured. There's the Old Testament. It's the stories and whatever of the Jewish people all the way back thousands of years ago. It doesn't contain the only books in their holy set or whatever, but that's what we use, the Old Testament. Well, the New Testament is about Jesus, the Son of Man, as referred to in the Old Testament. The Old Testament talks about the Son of Man as like a Messiah that comes along and sparks Armageddon into being and everything. Jesus comes along, claims to be that guy, that Messiah, that intends to spark Armageddon into being and everything, right? So this guy wrote a book about his life, his later life, and they named that book Mark. His name was not Mark, by the by. That's just the name of the book. I mean, that's just what they named the book. Matthew and Luke were written based on Mark, and then hundreds of years later, the book of John was written. The writer of the book of John believed that Jesus was God, believed that believed in the Trinity, and after the fact wrote things in to create the idea that the Trinity existed, even though Jesus didn't believe that in the Trinity. He didn't believe that he was God. His disciples didn't believe that he was God or any of that other stuff. Anyway, so those are the books about Jesus' life. There was really only one, and it was Mark. The other three, Matthew, Luke, John, were all written based off of the original Mark. Every book after John was written about or by Paul. Paul was one of Jesus' disciples or whatever, and he was creating the new church. So you get things like 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians. Those were Paul's letters to the Corinthian congregation, for example, or the book of Titus. It was a letter to the congregation in Titus. Okay, so Paul writes the letter, his first letter to the Corinthian congregation, 1 Corinthians. And at this point, the Corinthian congregation had said to him, there's a guy who did, in our congregation, did something really, really, really bad. Like, really bad. What do we do with him? In his first letter to the Corinthians, Paul said to this congregation, I wrote in my letter not to associate with sexually immoral people, not at all meaning the people of this world who are immoral, or the greedy and the swindlers or idolaters. In that case, you would have to leave this world. But now I'm writing you that you must not associate with anyone who claims to be a brother or sister, but is sexually immoral or greedy or an idolater or slanderer or drunkard or swindler. Do not even eat with such people. Now, this is the verse that Jehovah's Witnesses use to justify shunning. It says plain as day here, don't even eat with such a man. Don't associate with somebody who's done something like truly bad and calls themselves a brother. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses kind of took it upon themselves to call themselves the brothers. They are God's organization. And if you violate any of these rules, any of the rules at all that they set out, up to and including the silliest of them all, I mean things like not reading their translation of the Bible and absolutely refusing to switch over, or, I don't know, dyeing your hair. My brothers got reproved in the congregation for frosting their tips when we were kids. Really. I mean, you can get disfellowshipped or you can get in trouble for a lot of stupid stuff. So anyways, that's the verse, right? And that's pretty clear. That seems like a pretty clear example of the Bible is in favor of shunning. Except Jehovah's Witnesses don't jump over to the second letter to the Corinthians that Paul wrote, okay? So the Corinthian congregation wrote a letter back, and they said, basically, go f*** yourself. This is wrong. We're not doing this. This guy has had it hard enough. He's having a hard time, and we're not going to treat him like garbage the way that you're describing. So we want you to rethink this position. That's basically what they said to him. And in response, in Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, let me just show you what he wrote in response to what they said. 2 Corinthians, a second letter to the Corinthians, and this is the second chapter, all right? So we're going to start in verse 1. This is Paul responding to the Corinthian congregation, the Corinths, and telling them, after being chewed out by this congregation, what they should be doing if somebody breaks a rule. You know, should you be shunning or not? This is the answer that Paul gives. This is forgiveness for the offender subsection here. If anyone has caused grief, he has not so much grieved me as he has grieved all of you to some extent, not to put it too severely. Now, I don't remember what it was this guy did, but it must have been pretty serious for him to have claimed that he grieved the guy seriously, right? Or that the guy grieved the congregation seriously. The punishment inflicted on him by the majority is sufficient. So what he's saying is, what you've done already is fine. I'm not asking you guys to go any further than you've already gone. Forget it. Leave the guy alone, okay? I told you guys to shun him last time. Some of you shunned him, and the rest chewed me out and said, this is messed up. We shouldn't be doing this. I apologize. What's been done is good enough. Let's just leave it alone. Just bring him back into the fold, basically. Now, instead, you ought to forgive and comfort him so that he will not be overwhelmed by excessive sorrow. I urge you, therefore, to reaffirm your love for him. Remember, what we're reading right now, this guy is still being shunned up to this moment. This guy who Paul instructed the Corinthian congregation to shun for whatever reason, for whatever it was he did, called his mother a whore or something, who knows, is still right now being shunned. Right? And Paul's writing a letter and he's saying, you know what? You're right. Too much. It was too much. Shunning is wrong. we shouldn't do it as part of this religion, so forget it. So this guy's still being shunned in the congregation, and Paul comes back to the Corinthian congregation and he says, you know what, that's enough. That's enough. No more shunning. I apologize. We're not doing that anymore. Bring him in. Love him as a brother. Try to show him how to come back to God and how to love God and fix his relationship with God and all of that other stuff. You don't need to do this. I know it's an undue pain on people, right? At no point in the Bible or in, the books after that, or even before that, to my knowledge, did they reinforce the idea that they should be shunning. The only verse Jehovah's Witnesses use to justify their shunning of their, of people's family members is the verse in 1 Corinthians where Paul is vindictively and angrily saying, don't even dine with such a man. The one that he reversed the next book, the next letter to the Corinthians, because he got chewed out for being too harsh. Jehovah's Witnesses ignore 2 Corinthians where he apologizes and says, this is wrong, we shouldn't be shunning, and they ignore the following, I don't know however many books it is, where he doesn't bring it up again. They ignore that stuff, and they zero in on the part where Paul said we should be shunning. The Bible doesn't support shunning. Jehovah's Witnesses support shunning. And of course, they claim to speak for God, and since they speak for God, you should listen or die in Armageddon. That's what it's all about for them, really. So anyway, let's get back to this episode here. Let's start from the beginning. We're only like a few seconds in anyways. Listen again. Listen again to how Jehovah's Witnesses justify the shunning and how they are supposed to deal with it.
Abel was essentially a spiritual orphan, but regardless of what his parents chose, he listened to Jehovah and patiently waited on him to fulfill his promises.
I never thought of it that way. What has Jehovah promised me if I patiently wait?
So she's shunning her mother by mandate. If she messages her mom instead of shunning her, she'll be disfellowshipped. That's the idea here. And now they're trying to give her reasons. So they're giving her a carrot and a stick, right? The stick is, we're going to remove you from the religion. The carrot is, you can have closer fellowship with your brothers. You can find a young, hot Jehovah's Witness guy to marry.
Spiritual brothers?
Right? Trying to find mates in the religion. You shouldn't be looking outside the religion for mates.
Sisters? And mothers.
And in addition to finding hot young Jehovah's Witness men, you'll find your replacement family members in the organization. You will find people who will treat you like a mother. Now, as it turns out, when I left the religion, I found a woman who treated me like a mother, who was not a Jehovah's Witness, who was disgusted by Jehovah's Witnesses and what they did to people. But I shouldn't have had to have done that. I should have had access to my own family rather than losing them to this religion. Disgusting. And they're justifying it here. Simply disgusting. So now presented with all of the good things she'll get from shunning her mother, a replacement mom in the congregation, and a hot husband, the choice to cut off your own mother as though she is dead because she effectively is dead to you. Remember, they pulled the rug out from under her. This decision's going to be a lot easier for her now. I found it interesting. I mean, if you look here, you can tell that they're portraying it as a difficult thing. It's hard. It's not easy for a Jehovah's Witness to shun a family member. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. Not something they would choose to do by and large if they had the option. But they know that they're going to lose everything if they don't shun too. Or they know that they're not going to make it through Armageddon if they don't shun. Or they know that Jehovah loves them and wants them to shun, for example, or whatever other thing, right? Whatever justification they use in their head. And they're portraying that they know it's difficult for people, but it doesn't matter how hard it is. You need to do it anyways. So anytime you have trouble, anytime you're struggling and you really want to talk to your mother, anytime you've lost that family member and you don't want to treat them like they're dead anymore, close your eyes, take 5 deep breaths, and read the Bible. That's what you're supposed to do, apparently, according to Jehovah's Witnesses. Disgusting.
If I focus on what I do have,
Now they're showing her talking to the woman portrayed as a replacement mother. If I focus on the things that I do have, it'll be easier to deal with, right? Is what they're going to say. She's found a replacement mother that she can befriend. I mean, this is so on the nose and disgusting. I just, like, how did anybody ever act in this? How did anybody ever produce it? How did anybody ever justify this all along the chain? The writers and the actors and the editors and the everythings. How did it happen?
if I focus on what I do have and wait patiently, someday what I don't have may even come back to Jehovah.
But you do have it. You do have it. Right now. Right here. Your mom is alive now. You can talk to her now. You don't have to wait for her to come back to Jehovah. You can talk to her now. Guess what? She was, 60 years old when she got this fellowship or something? What'd she do? I'm going to guess she accepted that she was a lesbian and got a girlfriend. That's my guess. Let me tell you a little secret about this woman. She is exactly who she always was from the very beginning. Her personality was probably set in stone by about 25 years old. So she looked like she was an older woman, 60 maybe? How many years does she have left? 20, maybe? And instead of spending those last 20, maybe 30 years with her, you're going to burn it up. Reading the Bible to prevent the pain from overwhelming you. I'm trying my hardest to portray the situation the way that I feel it to you guys, but boy, does it hurt. When you're in this situation, it hurts. Like, a lot. And you know what? And it's a pain that people can't really fully understand unless they're there, unless they know, unless they've been in this position. It hurts a lot. Anyway, let me know what you thought about the videos. I thought they were absolutely disgusting. It doesn't surprise me at all that Jehovah's Witnesses produced them, scripted them, acted in them, produced them, and uploaded them to their app, and then decided to pull them back down before airing them. The thing that surprises me the most is the fact that they didn't play them in the first place. The fact that they removed them from their thing so that, they weren't going to play them in their conventions or whatever. That surprises me, actually. Just disgusting. Let me know what you think about it in the comments.